Wait till Marius comes back, otherwise it'll
Oh,
be
yeah,
noisy.
right. But why would they call him Thunderbolt? You know why? Because he was...
Baked beans?
He had a half-brother. And they would rob things sort of almost simultaneously, but he could strike here and then he'd strike 50 kilometres away and...
Right, so he had a twin.
But it wasn't him, it was his twin, it was his half-brother. The amount of people that told me they're descendant of our Thunderbolt. I know the whole family tree.
He had to have a twin.
Yeah, just the only children he had was two Aboriginal.
Listen to this story, Marius.
Alright, we're running.
I have a best friend who lives in Sydney. Her name is Carol Carter. And her great-grandfather was a bushranger by the name of Thunderbolt. Fred Ward was his real name. And when her father died, before he died, he handed down the family history to her brother, Brian. He lives in Tamworth. And it's about her great-grandfather, Thunderbolt, when he was a bushranger. Now, when he was married to a woman called Mary Bugg, and they had 3 or 4 children, but he later left Mary Bugg and she married a Carter, and he ran off with another Aboriginal woman called Yallalong. So when he was with Mary Bugg, he would target a town where he was going to rob the general store or the post office or whatever. He would target a town where they had picnic races, and the horse that won the big race of the day, he'd give it an hour to spell it, to rest up, then he'd rob the store, steal the horse that won the big race, and nobody in the area could catch him, because it was the fastest horse in the district, right? And his wife, Mary Bugg, she would have 2 children in wicker baskets hanging off the side of the horse, waiting up in the hills for him. And at one time there, they caught him one stage, and they had him on Cockatoo Island. And Mary Bugg, she got a big 44-gallon drum and got it cut in half, and she had it tied together, and she rowed out to Cockatoo Island to help him escape. And he was to go in the second half of the 44-gallon drum, but he insisted on taking this fellow with him. One of the other prisoners, a fellow called Brixton. Now, about 6 months after the escape, and they made it a clear getaway, Brixton died of tuberculosis. And then 8 months after that, Thunderbolt was identified by one of his ex-bushranger mates as Thunderbolt. His body was identified because of the scar on a bullet hole scar on his leg. But Thunderbolt didn't have a bullet scar on his leg. His half-brother did, which is why they called him Thunderbolt, because nobody knew he had a half-brother, and when he's robbing one store here, his brother might rob the store 50 kilometres away an hour and a half, 2 hours later, and they'd say he strikes so fast he can make it from here 50 kilometres away and rob 2 stores within half an hour or an hour or so. So he got the name, I assume, Thunderbolt from that. Now, when they buried Thunderbolt, in the newspaper there was a story about this woman, this tall woman, dressed all in black with a black veil, a black hat, black veil that you couldn't see her face, but she walked with a manly gait. Now, 6 months after they buried Thunderbolt, a fellow Brixton, who escaped from Cockatoo Island with him, who earlier died of tuberculosis, he migrated to America. So, obviously Thunderbolt was at his own funeral, and then migrated to America under his mate's name, who'd earlier died of tuberculosis.
So they never really got him.
No, he's probably got a whole other family over in America that's connected to the family here, you know. But yeah, we have the whole family tree, and historians today cannot find out what happened to Thunderbolt's children, because Mary Bugg married a fellow called Carter, and they took the name Carter. And he was presumably the father of these children, but they were really Fred Ward's children, or Thunderbolt's children.
Well, he disappeared like lightning, changed his name and took off to America.
He's probably on the descendants are on the International Monetary Fund over there.
He's now called Storm.
Yeah, and yeah, there's a lot of other things connected with him too that would make a good movie.
What year would this be? Around what year?
There's a place outside of Warwick that on the way on the New England Highway they call Thunderbolts Rock, where he used to wait behind this rock to hold up the stagecoaches. And I think it would have been around the 1870s, 1880s, thereabout.
He could have turned up in America as one of their outlaws.
Yeah.
You never know. Change the
Yeah.
name. He could have been, Mississippi Slim.
Stagecoaches over
Something
there.
like
And, yeah, I believe a kid or...
You just don't know. He could have
Yeah.
turned out to be some other famous
Well, I've got all the
American
research down.
outlaw.
I've got all the research down at home. I'm going to do a remake of this
Yeah.
video. We'll have the actual dates and so forth. But they made a play in Sydney last year called not last year, about 3 years ago, called Black Mary, about Thunderbolt's wife. You know, so much had been said about Thunderbolt, they decided that she needed recognising equally because she was so loyal, and the things she did you just wouldn't have a woman doing in those days. You know, dressing like a man and riding horses to make a getaway after robbing a bank with 2 kids in the wicker basket hanging off the side of the horse. It's pretty amazing stuff. When I went to Victoria recently, I stopped in at Jerilderie and actually got into the old Jerilderie courthouse because I was doing a tourist pose for the camera, knocking on the courthouse door because it's deserted now, empty. And a voice inside said, "Who's that?" I thought, "Geez." Went around the back and there was a car there and 2 old ladies were cleaning out. They were using it as a book storage shed, a book storage place. And they opened the door and I heard my friend as I came back around the corner, she said, "Oh, my friend's very interested in history." And this old lady said, "History?" She said, "We've still got the old dock in here with the coat of arms and the old magistrate's bench, which was really high, and you know, you'd like to come in and have a look around." And oh, that was such a thrill. We stopped at a garage 100 yards down the road, and I was telling this old fellow, I went around the corner to have a cigarette, and he was doing the same thing. His wife was filling the car up, and I said, I just went into the Jerilderie courthouse, you know, that was a pretty big thing for me, because history's a passion. And he said, "Yeah," he said, "I used to live around these parts." He said, "See that railway line over the road there?" He said, "That used to be the stagecoach route." He said, "When Ben Hall was riding and robbing the stagecoaches around this district," he said, "there was a fellow called Jardine." I think he said Jardine. He was the security on the stagecoach, and the night of the big robbery, he said, that was attributed to Ben Hall. He said Ben Hall was actually camped on Jardine's property over the back here, about a mile back outside of Jerilderie. And he was living in poverty like most of the people in those days, but 6 months after the big robbery, and Ben Hall and his men were camped on his property the night of the big robbery, this guard off the stagecoach, he brought up all these hundreds of acres of land around this area. And he knew Ben Hall was on his property, so he must have robbed the stagecoach and Ben Hall got the blame for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ain't that the wild truth? .com